Hello and welcome to our map of Maycomb. This was a project for our language class for To Kill a Mockingbird. This is the map of Maycomb, obviously. This is where the Finches live, and this is where the general story takes place. This is by Jacob and Abe in Fifth Hour. A lot of these houses are just the main houses from the story. Between here, there would have been a few filler houses, but they didn't really have an important role in the story. So that just kind of saved, by not putting them in there, that sort of saved about an hour or 2 to 3 hours of not putting those in there, since they weren't really necessary because they didn't have any sort of a role in the story. But to get started, this is where the school would have been. Obviously, it would have not been probably as close to their house, but it would have been farther down the path. The path is sort of like a dry path, as it would have been really dry where they lived, with some little darker spots. The school would have been generally pretty small due to the fact that they lived in a pretty small town with not many people in it, so they wouldn't have needed a very big school, and even at the time many schools weren't that large. They tended to stay pretty small, so there would have been sometimes one classroom, two classrooms, three classrooms for the whole town, and that would have been the only school they go to. First off, right to the right here, we have Miss Stephanie's house. She was the neighbor of the Finches. They were often in her yard and everything, and here's the Finches' house. This is where they lived. This is where a majority of the story takes place, is in their house, with Jem and Scout. Atticus not as much, it's more of him at the courthouse, which was down the road. This was Miss Maddie's house. Like in the story, it burns down, so we just have sort of the shambles and the debris of this house left over here. And then to the left of that, I think there should have been one sort of quote-unquote filler house in the middle here, but like I've said before, since they weren't really necessary to the story, we don't really need them that much. But here we have Mr. Avery's house. In the story, he wasn't seen a lot in the story, but he was often the person who is thought to be the person who he was the person who filled the tree with the tar because it was quote-unquote dying, because he saw Scout and Jem getting the gifts in the tree knot. And then across from that, here we have the courthouse. This is where the trial took place between Tom Robinson and the Ewell family. These are tables where the lawyers Atticus and Mr. Gilmer would have been sitting at, along with Tom and Mayella, because Tom was being convicted of raping Mayella. Some jury stands, a judge stand, where the judge would have been, and then witness stands on the sides of that for when Atticus or Mr. Gilmer would call up witnesses to ask for their testimonies. A lot of that's basically most of the town. Once again, this was from Abe and Jacob in Fifth Hour, and yeah, that's it.